From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. I hope everyone's recovering from St. Patrick's Day or trying to be Irish Day. Either way, welcome to this morning's show. We've got a packed show for all of y'all today. A lot to talk about today, from ransomware news to Telegram CEO Durov actually getting permission to leave France after nearly 8 or 9 months in the country, some data breach news, and some class action settlements, all on our books today. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Nutch Security. We're going to hear from them here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, morning show is really special, right? So I've got my double espresso here. I've made it. It's delicious. It's amazing. It's so good. And I want to share it with y'all. Why? Well, I'll tell you what the point of the espresso is. When I started the show, I didn't want to do an hour-long show. I felt like an hour is too long. And you can enjoy an espresso for about 20 minutes. That's kind of the rule of thumb. That's why this show is kind of like, maybe I should change the name from the CyberHub Podcast to the Espresso, Cyber News with Espresso, something. I don't know. Figure something out. But either way, got my double espresso here. Let's get into the news after I take my caffeine shot. Coffee cup cheers. So good. All right. Western Alliance Bank is notifying about 22,000 individuals that their PII was stolen from a third-party secure FTP. This is going back to October of last year, when an unknown vulnerability in the FTP tool allowed threat actors to gain access to a limited portion of Western Alliance's systems and stole files from them. In January, they learned that the data was compromised in the attack. And just last month, they determined the personal information was stolen. That includes names, social security numbers, dates of birth, driver's license number, passport information, financial account numbers, and tax identification numbers. So let's get into that here for a second. They've done all the stuff with Maine Attorney General, 21,899 victims. All in all, they filed this with the SEC. The Clop ransomware were the ones that kind of are known to go after the FTP files. But I'm going to get brass tacks here for just a second. In banking, it's very common to use FTP. Very, very common to use FTP. More common than you can possibly imagine. So common. However, there is a rule of thumb. You never leave PII in FTP folders, meaning specifically, PII comes in, it's immediately downloaded, it's deleted from the FTP portal, right? And it's stored in wherever you deem secure to store that type of data. Typically, your banking backend, whether it be FIS or Fiserv or whatever it is that you use on the back end, Finxact, whatever you're using on the back end, that customer file is where you store that data. The fact that customer data with PII was sitting in an FTP is, I don't want to say gross negligence, but it's close, right? And I don't want to shame victims, right? I'm not trying to shame victims here. I'm not shaming victims. This is not the idea of shaming victims. But what this is there's something greater to this. And it's a lack of understanding the threat surface and the amount of overtrust put into third-party type of products like FTP products. So put that out there. Real honest talk here, folks. Like, I can't tell you any other way but this way. You can't leave PII data in FTP for more than 24 hours. And I don't think that Western Alliance does 22,000 customers a day. In fact, it took them 3 months to realize they were even part of the breach. So it just tells you how immature their security program may have been. So there's that. We'll get to the Mora ransomware gang exploiting the Fortinet bug spotlighted by CISA back in January. So we talked about this earlier this week on I think we talked about it yesterday on the show or Thursday. I can't remember. Either way, we talked about this. I remember talked about it. Well, now we know that this ransomware operation has ties to LockBit. It's Mora 001, so it's an evolution of LockBit. And remember, if you're new to the show, I often talk about the decentralized nature of cybercrime. The decentralized nature of cybercrime is there's all these different cyber criminals, and they each have an expertise. They take those expertise and they form a ransomware group together that then goes out and tries to generate as much revenue, and then there's a profit sharing type of deal going on there. So what happens is you see the FBI, DOJ, Europol, Interpol, all these law enforcement organizations announce we've taken down LockBit, we've seized their servers. Well, you've seized primary server. All the additional threat actors, the supporting, which is really the foundation of a ransomware gang, is still out there. And what they'll do is they'll just form a new group with someone else at the helm. And that's constantly the evolution, right? So they're constantly evolving with new names. CISO has now given all federal agencies 1 week to patch CVE 2024-55991 and 2025-24472 within the same advisory. Both of these are significant threats to the Fortinet firewall and VPN. So you want to make sure you get these addressed. And again, we talked about this yesterday. Super Black is the variant that was designated to this type of threat. Fortinet has not yet responded to comments letting you know just exactly how sensitive this is. That Fortinet still, typically Fortinet is quick to respond. We're working on it. We're aware of the reports. We're addressing it. Or yes, this is true. Fortinet's silence here is deafening. There's that. Blackbasta's private chat logs that were leaked last month reveal strategies, tactics, and targeted vulnerabilities that the ransomware gang as a service gang used over the last 2 years. Electic IQ researchers analyzed the chats, discovered a previously unidentified brute forcing framework dubbed Brooded that Blackbasta threat actors have used since 2023 to target network edge devices like VPNs and firewalls. The Blackbasta use of Brooded suggested that many organizations continue to have weak or reused passwords for some of their edge devices, making the tool popular. These were primarily targeting widely used VPN and firewall products from Cisco, Fortinet, Palo Alto, SonicWall, WatchGuard, and Citrix. Additionally, the tool can target Microsoft's RD web instance for remote desktop protocol applications. And again, I'm going to go back to hygiene. Security starts at hygiene. So again, Brooded would scan and collect data on subdomains and IP addresses. It would then try to extract the SSL certificate data, and then it would start generating password guesses for specific organizations. It would take advantage of some weak or reused credentials that they would find online through the dark web that are readily available. According to Electic IQ, in the analysis they've written and crafted that the framework crafted appropriate HTTP and HTTPS requests, user agent strings, and even post data to resemble real VPN or RDP client. And it's just showing you that this idea that one token is good for 30 days is flawed within itself. That idea alone is flawed, gang. It's flawed, and it's going to need to be revamped and revolutionized. The idea that a token isn't constantly renovating, constantly evolving, is going to be a problem as we enter the Gen AI, the agentic AI, the large language models, and then the quantum computing and the supercomputing capabilities that are just around the corner. We'll get to some quantum news here in just a little bit as well. But before we go on with this story, our friends over at Nudge Security are so kind to help support the show and help us bring you everything we do today. Here's a little message from our friends over at Nudge Security. Hey, security gang. I'm so happy to welcome back Nudge Security to the show. And let's talk a little bit about identity risks, data security risks, and third-party risks, and what do they all have in common? They're made a whole lot worse by SaaS sprawl. Every new SaaS account adds a new identity to secure a new place where sensitive data could end up and a new vendor risk management assessment you need to complete. Nudge Security addresses those risks at the source, helping you to protect and manage all of your apps, identities, and data anywhere and everywhere work can happen. It all starts with discovery. Within minutes of starting your free trial, you'll have a full inventory of every SaaS account ever created by anyone in your org, along with insights into authentication methods, app-to-app integrations, vendor risk insights, and more. My team and I did this last summer. It was absolutely mind-boggling what we found. It helped us really kind of put a plan together and start a method of trying to automate security and governance tasks like detecting risks and misconfiguration. It helped us conduct user access reviews and help us offboard employees from specific apps that we didn't even know existed. It freed up our time for a lot more strategic work and vendor security profiles for every app, even Gen AI tools. It helped us do all of that, and it automated it, which I'm a big fan of. Nudge Security is graciously offering everyone a free 14-day trial by going to nudgesecurity.com/cyberhub. That's nudgesecurity.com/cyberhub. The link is in the show notes as well. Go get your free 14-day trial now. All right, so we're back. Thank you for that, and thank you for all y'all for supporting the companies that support our podcast. A widespread phishing campaign is targeting nearly 12,000 GitHub repositories with a fake security alert issue, tricking some developers into authorizing a malicious OAuth app that grants attackers full control over their account and code. The security alert, an unusual access attempt, we've detected a login attempt on your GitHub account that appears to be from a new location or device, is what this reads. It looks just like this here. And by the way, we'll put this at cyberhubpodcast.com. You can find it there. And I recommend you kind of put this out there for all your developers that use GitHub. If you're a GitHub shop, this is a 911 urgent alert. Security researcher Luke 4M first spotted this fake alert and warned GitHub users that their account was breached and they should update their passwords, review and manage active sessions, enable MFA to secure their accounts. Now, when he says enable MFA, yes, enable MFA through app. Please, through an app, not through text messages. I beg you. Roger Grimes begs you. We all beg you. Please do not use SMS for MFA. For the sake of all things sacred, do not do that. Anyways, all the links that recommend action to GitHub authorization page from the Git Security app, OAuth app, that requests a lot of very risky permissions that would allow an attacker full access to the user account and repos. Obviously, this is a major threat that you definitely want to address in the awareness side right away. Make sure you get that out there. Less than a week after rollout of patches for a critical remote code execution vulnerability in Apache Tomcat, an exploit code has been published on a Chinese forum showing how to hijack servers with one single put request. According to the bulletin from WallArm, there are signs the bug is being exploited in the wild prior to the release of the exploit code. This Tomcat vulnerability for Apache is tagged as CVE 2025-24813, was patched last Monday with an important severity rating. It affects Apache Tomcat 11.0.0-M1 to 11.0.2, 10.1.0-M1 to 10.1.34, and 9.0.0-M1 to 9.0.98. The attack is that simple to execute, requires no authentication. It's a serious vulnerability with no user interaction or no authentication needed, making it very common to take advantage of. Worse is base 64 encoding allows the exploit to bypass most security filters, making detection challenging all of within itself. So you want to make sure you get your Apache Tomcat vulnerability patched up ASAP. In the attack observed, WallArm said they saw a put request was sent containing a base 64 encoded serialized Java payload saved to a Tomcat session storage. The attacker then sends a GET request with a J session ID cookie pointing to the upload session file, forcing Tomcat to deserialize and execute the malicious Java code, granting complete control to the attacker. Patch up. The Russian-born founder, Pavel Durov of Telegram, has now been allowed to leave France due to an ongoing criminal investigation. We've talked about this. The French kind of kept him in France, arrested him there, trying to beat him down, cooperate, and give them access to Telegram. And we've reported just several months ago that it appeared that Telegram was cooperating with the French. And obviously, there's a lot of questions around that. However, Durov on Monday confirmed reports that a judge did allow him to leave France for several weeks to go back home to Dubai. He wants to thank the investigative judges for letting this happen, as well as his lawyers and his team in relentless efforts in demonstrating that when it comes to moderation, cooperation, and fighting crime, Telegram has not only met but exceeded its legal obligations for years. The process is ongoing, but it feels good to be home, Durov said. He obviously moved his headquarters to Dubai in 2017, where he's been living. He became a citizen of the UAE, which is not the same. You don't become a citizen in the UAE. You're granted a permanent visa, essentially, for bringing your business there and being very influential. Durov was arrested in Paris back in August, and he's now being allowed to leave. So there's that there for Durov. That's good news. An appellate court has upheld the sentence of former Uber cyber executive Joe Sullivan. So the prosecution had appealed the fact that he received 3 years of supervised, 3 years of probation, and wanted a more strict punishment. The appellate court has upheld that as being that's good enough for Joe. Joe, one less rock on your chest, one giant relief for you and the family, buddy. I hope you're doing well, and this closes that chapter in your life forever, and look forward to seeing you soon. Indian IT services company Infosys says U.S. subsidiary Infosys McCamish Systems agreed to pay a $17.5 million settlement to settle 6 different class action lawsuits related to the cybersecurity incident and the compromise of personal information of more than 6 million people. The lawyers made out here with a lot of money, and every victim is going to get $20 is what this actually means. And Infosys McCamish is a subsidiary that provides life insurance and retirement software and services in the U.S. They agreed to settle several class action lawsuits by paying a $17.5 million into a consolidated fund. Infosys McCamish Systems says the plaintiff settled the claims on March 13th without any admission of liability. So there's that. And NIST announcing a 5th algorithm added to its post-quantum cryptography portfolio. It plans to issue a draft HQC standard in early 2026, and the finalized standard is expected in 2027. So the first round of post-quantum cryptography standardization process, the only key establishment algorithm that will be standardized is HQC, and NIST will develop a standard based on HQC to augment its key establishment portfolio. 4 other algorithms have already been selected, obviously Crystal's Kyber, Crystal's Dilithium, Sphinx, and I believe it's FIPS 206. It's built around Falcon. So all in all, those are some of the news there from NIST. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest cybersecurity news. Please make sure to go check out CyberHubPodcast.com for all the latest. And you can get this podcast in summary format in your email shortly after the live show ends at around 9, you typically get it by 9:30, 9:35 Eastern. And it gives you kind of like a written breakdown with some of the action items. So if you missed anything, you can just go do that. Go to CyberHubPodcast.com and do it there. Until then, have a great rest of your day and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.